Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And while this may not be the first time I've ever featured the Fantasque, it's certainly the first time that Painkiller here has ever sailed one. This is his very first game in this Tier 8 French destroyer. So, since Painkiller has no expectations as far as this ship is concerned, let's just quickly go over what makes this thing good and what makes it bad. Starting with bad. It doesn't get a smokescreen. That alone may be enough to scare off a lot of destroyer captains, but, well, it's not like the French are the only ones that don't get smokescreens. All of the Swedish destroyers lack them as well, and they seem to be doing alright, particularly the Halland. It also has fairly poor turret traverse on its guns. I mean, we're not talking Japanese destroyer standards, but it's definitely not good. And it has bad concealment. Very, very bad concealment. Although it's bad concealment, kind of... Well, I don't want to say it's a good thing, because it isn't, but in certain circumstances... Have a look at the rocket attack planes being launched from the friendly Lexington. They've just spotted a Farragut. The reason they spotted the Farragut was because the Farragut didn't turn his anti-aircraft guns off. If he had, the aircraft wouldn't have spotted him until they were possibly as little as 3.5 kilometres away, but instead they spotted him from 5 kilometres away, the range at which his AA guns started firing, giving the Lexington time to actually line him up for an extraordinarily difficult rocket attack. And also, because this is the primary threat that aircraft pose to destroyers, spotting him and lining him up so that Painkiller and his division mate in the Lightning can wipe him out and claim the First Blood Award. Now, the Farragut didn't do himself any favours there whatsoever. First of all, he got spotted because he didn't turn his AA guns off in plenty of time to allow the Lexington to line him up for a hit. And then once he realised he was getting shot at by a pair of Tier 8 destroyers, he tried to do two things at once: hide inside the smokescreen and barrel out of there with the engine boost running, which are two mutually exclusive activities. You can do one or the other, but you can't do both. Well, that's all very well, Jingles, but what does this have to do with the lousy concealment on the Fantasque? Good question. Glad you asked. You may have noticed that Painkiller has his AA guns turned off, and doesn't turn them on until he gets spotted from the air. This is something that the Farragut should have done, because his surface concealment, or rather his surface detection from the air, is about 3.7 kilometres, but his AA guns will start giving his position away from about 5 kilometres. Note the Shikaku coming around for another go. Painkiller activates the engine boost, and that one misses as well. Yeah, on the Fantasque, you will be spotted from the air at a range of around about 4 kilometres, in fact more than 4 kilometres, depending on whether or not you've taken the concealment expert skill. But your AA guns don't start shooting until the aircraft are 3.5 kilometres away, so you are always going to get spotted before your anti-aircraft guns can do anything about it, so it doesn't actually matter whether you have them turned on or turned off in the Fantasque. Unlike in other ships which have longer ranged AA guns and slightly better stealth, on the Fantasque your anti-aircraft guns are never going to be the thing that gives you away. So what else is good about the Fantasque? Well, basically everything else, other than the slow turret traverse, the dodgy concealment and the lack of a smokescreen. Everything else about the Fantasque is good, in particular the speed. With the engine boost running and a Sierra Mike flag, you will top out at nearly 54 knots, or substantially faster than the Elbing's torpedoes. And despite the lousy stealth, you can actually stealth torpedo in this thing, providing that you take a concealment module as well as the concealment expert skill. You can see that Painkiller has gotten his stealth down to 6.4 kilometres, and the range of his torpedoes is 8. So we're going to see if that Strasbourg over there has been paying any attention whatsoever to his map, to the Farragut that was just killed by an enemy destroyer, to the cap that was just flipped by an enemy destroyer. And nope, doesn't look like he is. How many of those are going to hit? And that would be 2? No, 3. With each of these torpedoes having a potential maximum damage of 18,400, you really don't want to get hit by one of them, let alone 3. The Lightning smoking up because he can, and of course Painkiller not being able to smoke up, just simply sitting outside the smokescreen and continuing to spot the Barrasque for his division mate. Oh, hang on a second. There's a very, very tempting looking Badioni, tantalisingly close, just around the corner of that island over there. What madness is this? A destroyer going after a light cruiser with its guns at short range? Well, yeah, you see, the new German heavy destroyers were not the first to have excellent performance with their armour-piercing shells. The French also tend to have higher than average calibers on their destroyer main battery guns, in this case 139mm and high velocity at 50 caliber long barrels, in combination with the main battery reload booster, means that Le Fantasque is capable of putting out a terrifying amount of armour-piercing damage in a very, very short period of time as well, and at ranges of 7 kilometers or so is entirely capable of going one-to-one against enemy light cruisers. How come this Strasbourg isn't dead yet? Let's give him a helping hand with some 139mm high explosive. He's already burning quite nicely thanks to the lightning, whose smokescreen has now expired and was holding his fire until the Strasbourg committed to shooting at Painkiller, and now he's probably going to finish him off with British destroyer high explosive, which does tend to hit quite hard. And yeah. So that's 3 kills now for this division, and if you've been keeping score, that's all of the kills that this team has so far managed to inflict upon the enemy, while at the same time losing a battleship, a cruiser and a destroyer of their own. So now they have to decide, are they going to go after that carrier, or are they going to try to flip Bravo? And going after the carrier, in and of itself, not that dangerous anymore, with the change to the way that rocket attack planes work. But there are still an awful lot of enemy ships within a couple of kilometres of that carrier, and, well, spotting is still spotting, and is still the major threat that carriers pose to destroyers, so maybe going after the carrier wouldn't be such a good idea after all. Of course, to a large degree, that does, rely on the carrier cooperating and not going after you, which, so far, he is doing. Painkiller turning to take the next attack on the head. Slowed down, now accelerates, and that was kind of close. I have to admit, the carrier didn't do too badly there, but he didn't do well enough. Of course, he is going to have spare aircraft left over to have another go, and here he comes. And yeah, no problem. It's all good. Meanwhile, down to the south, Capture Point Bravo is in the process of being flipped by a friendly battleship. But it is a Kansas, a battleship that is so bad in all respects, particularly concealment, that even players on the Two Brothers map can see him attempting to flip the cap from here. So he's probably going to need a little bit of help. Why is the Kansas so bad anyway? I mean, the Minnesota at tier 9 isn't that much better, but the Vermont at tier 10 is actually very, very good. Could it perhaps be that Wargaming want you to spend money on buying gold to convert free XP to skip the awful grind that is the Kansas and the Minnesota? Nah. Put that tinfoil hat away, old man, and just concentrate on the commentary. Alright, fair enough. So who's going to be the biggest threat to the Kansas? Well, honestly, I think it's probably going to be that Bismarck that the Kansas is given broadside to. And he is on kind of low health, so yeah. Go Gadget Destroyer Division. Main battery reload booster active, both Painkiller and No-Go Rogo, or is it No-Go Rogu? Difficult to tell. The guy in the lightning open up on the mighty tier 8 German battleship, whose secondaries are blazing away, but who is struggling to get his main batteries pointed at anything. And in any case is, oh well, there they go, he's shooting. Yeah, it's not going to make any difference, is it? Painkiller displaying some remarkably poor situational awareness there, it does have to be said. I mean, the torpedo warning alarm was going off long before he turned around to see whether or not he was going to get hit by anything, although they were just airdropped torpedoes. Although that's probably around about 5,000 damage that he could have done without. Still, he is undetected. The Kansas obviously isn't and is getting shot at and is going to be constantly reset. And is just kind of very slowly sailing around in this cap circle, providing a very, very juicy looking target, or so he thinks, to the Benson over here, who is not paying attention to his map and does not realise that there's a Fantasque here. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Now, even without the main battery reload booster, well, yeah. It's not bad. It's not great. It helps, of course, that the Benson isn't shooting back, which probably means that the Benson has just launched torpedoes. And top tip, Benson, running yourself aground while going too fast to stay inside your smokescreen isn't going to help you. I mean, nice try, but that was destined to fail. He also doesn't seem to have launched any torpedoes, as Painkiller slows down to ensure that he stays inside the cap circle. What exactly was the Benson's plan here? He came zipping out of that channel, didn't launch any torpedoes. I think he only fired one gun, and then just kind of ran aground because he was going too fast to stay inside the smokescreen that he panic deployed and died. So what did he think he was going to do? Honestly, if there was a method to the Benson's madness there, I just don't get it. Maybe that's some Benson twat joke that us fantastic twats just don't get. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. But thanks for the smokescreen. I mean, it was absolutely no use to you because you were going too fast, but it might prove to be of some use to us. So, 4 against 3. You know, it has to be said that the rest of Painkiller's team are doing a pretty damn good job of trying to throw this match. I mean, at the point where Painkiller started engaging that Benson, it was 8 ships against 5. They've managed to lose 4 ships in the length of time it took Painkiller to kill the Benson, and in the process they've only managed to sink 1 enemy ship in return, with Painkiller getting the other one. Well, let's see what we can do about that. Although it's hard to see how Painkiller's team could lose at this point. They've got 3 of the 4 caps, they're 300 points ahead. And all of the players who suck are hopefully dead by now, but hey, there's still plenty of time left and anything can happen. So he's closing in on the New Mexico. Hey, Mr. New Mexico, look over here at the French destroyer, which is blazing away at you, mostly completely ineffectually, as all of these 139mm high explosive shells just shatter off your belt armour. Okay, that was good. You actually did a lot of damage there, but do you think that he might be shooting at you for a reason? And do you think that reason might be to distract your attention from the torpedoes? Wow, look at that. A destroyer with torpedoes. Who would have guessed? Certainly not the New Mexico. Right. And yeah, I mean, they're 400 points ahead. They have 3 of the 4 caps. This is usually the point where a team decides to suddenly start trying to win harder and throws the game. Coincidentally, or perhaps not, this is also roughly the moment when the enemy Shikaku manages to kill the New Mexico with its dive bombers. There it goes. Now, the New Mexico was actually trying to get away from the Hipper, so it's not like he was trying to win harder. However, this is not good. Painkiller's division mate in the Lightning is chasing the carrier, but well, the Shikaku's pretty fast and the Lightning isn't. Fortunately, the friendly Lexington is focusing that enemy carrier down, or at least trying to. Because when you have 2 destroyers on your team, the single biggest threat is always the enemy carrier. Again, not so much because of the direct damage that it's going to do, but the spotting that it is doing for the enemy Hipper. Interestingly though, the Lightning who's pursuing him, and is actually now inside visual range and probably shooting at him, is not the one occupying the attention of the enemy carrier. It is Painkiller, who probably assumed that he had a good chance of being able to flip this cap undetected. That, however, is not the case. The Shikaku is definitely trying to line up for that perfect and very difficult rocket hit. And is this going to be it? Nope, he doesn't have the angle. He keeps trying to get it, but, well, Painkiller's moving so quickly and manoeuvring so aggressively, he's making it very, very difficult for the enemy carrier. It looks like he's given up. That's great news, because it means he's able to flip this cap unopposed, without any interference from either the carrier, who now looks like he is going for the Lightning, or the Hipper. Bad news for the Lightning, of course, because even if the carrier doesn't hit him, there's an excellent chance that the Hipper will. And the Lightning's torpedoes just stopped well short of the Shikaku, which is the problem that you have when you're chasing down a fleeing carrier in a destroyer and trying to hit him with torpedoes. It's extremely difficult. This is why carriers are always the last ones alive at the end of a match, and even if you sink them, they can still ruin your day with their aircraft, so perhaps we should focus on that Hipper. The Lexington certainly is. He's given up trying to batter his way through the Shikaku's air defences, and he's vectored his dive bombers. Already one successful strike. Oh, I hope this isn't going to come back to bite you in the arse, Painkiller. You don't actually need this kill to win. You just need to not die for the next 40 seconds and win on points. And the Hipper goes down, and that is enough. Although the scoreboard's taking its time updating, that is enough for them to win the match by reaching 1,000 points, thanks to the fires set by the Lexington's dive bombers. That was Painkiller's first ever game in Le Fantasque. I think it's fairly safe to say he likes this ship and is having a lot of fun with the French destroyers in general. I think it's fairly safe to say that the lack of a smokescreen does tend to put off a lot of destroyer captains, but like the pan-European, or, let's be honest, Swedish destroyers, if you know how to handle them, you can do extremely well indeed. First Blood and Kraken Unleashed to Painkiller in Le Fantasque. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.